Alright, this is going to be a messy speedrun introduction to Patchbay. Here we are in the package JSON. Let's check out a couple of the scripts. It's just a node project. The classic start one runs Electron on index.js, and we're actually going to skip over it for the moment, and because the Electron setup closes over and runs a little scuttlebot inside the Electron app as it's running, and the setup's just a little bit fiddly. So instead we're actually going to be using the dev command to start up. So you need to be running your own local SBot server, and yep, there's some other caveats that I don't have time for. So we're starting an SBot, it's running, and then I'm running npm run dev, and this is Patchbay running. So let's look at some of the things about maybe what's going into this public page, and we're going to bump into quite a few ideas quickly. So pages in Patchbay are under app page these things, and here's public. There's a couple of different things in here than your average Node.js file. So we've got require files along the top. That's baby Ziva in the background just waking up. We've got require files requiring modules. I'm also sleep deprived, by the way. And we've got these gives, needs, and creates. So this is part of the module depject. And depject is kind of like a replacement for require. What it allows us to do is, it's here if you want to go read about it. What it allows us to do is specify some things that are kind of like modules that we're going to give. And so this particular thing is going to give app HTML menu item. I'll come back to why it's laid out a little bit like that. And these are some of the things that it's going to need. So these are kind of like the requires, and this is kind of like the module exports. So this is just a declaration of things, and those are there so that you can like really quickly check that you've got that when you run the app, you've got all of the modules that are run have what they need from somewhere, and depject just takes care of like plugging things into each other. It's a little bit crazy, but it works. And then create is the bit that actually goes ahead and makes the menu item or the app page public. So we should probably be talking about the page public just for the moment. Okay, so let's have a look at app page public. App page public is this function down here, and it gets given a location. And this is actually maybe like a slightly complicated one to start with. It uses pull streams, etc., etc. But let's charge on into it anyway. So here we've got a composer, and here you can see that we've got API. It's going to move to a less baby prone space. We've got API, and that's what's passed into this create. So depject collects up all of the things that are given from other places, and we've said that we need message HTML compose. So this is let's go actually look where that is. Message HTML compose is over here. So this is the thing that's giving up message HTML compose, and you can go and look at the details. So this is basically a little template, which is a compose box. And it takes a few things to help you customize what sort of messages it's posting. So, for example, type post, and yeah, this is a little bit ugly probably and needs a bit of rework. These two parts, the filter is for like filtering out certain messages. Could probably be done more elegantly. Want to rebuild. This scroller is a thing which means that it doesn't load all of the public messages and all history into the page at once. It just loads enough to fill up the screen, and if you scroll, it detects that and then streams in some more content. It's pretty cool. So yeah. Yep. So the pages are probably the more complicated part and need a little bit of rework. Maybe the profile page is a little bit easier to look at. Before we jump over there though, I want to come back and talk to this. So this looks a little bit like an object with a key and a value, and it is, but it's got this nest thing here. That's actually just a convenience function. So we could write this thing as app HTML menu item typing. That is exactly the same and equivalent. The reason we've just got this convenience method called nest is that it's just a personal preference, but it makes it actually pretty easy to search through the app for places where you're needing and giving, whereas like searching for this is a little bit harder as a string, and it just takes up a few more lines. Okay, so maybe now we'll talk about like why we've got these three levels. So this is an experiment that we've been running with Patchcore, where we've got, there's by default, like in 95% of cases, there are three levels deep. The first level is called the topic, the second level is like the type, and the last level is the name. So for example, what's the topic? Oh, this is an app level thing. What is it? What type is it? It's an HTML thing, so it's probably a template. And what is it in particular? It's a filter, so we're going to need a filter. Here's another one. It's in the topic or sort of domain of messages in particular. It's a HTML type template, and it's a render. It's called render. So let's have a look at there's some other types as well. So under app we've got async, HTML, page, styles, and sync. So we've got synchronous and asynchronous methods. So there's a synchronous method for navigation called app sync goto, which when you use it somewhere and run it, it kicks off all the necessary history things and changes your current view. Let's look at some other ones. It's not looking junk. Router sync routes. Don't have time to talk about this one right now. It's a router. Yeah. So. Let's look at the profile page, which I think is what I was going to suggest we do before. So the profile page is this slightly messy page here. Needs refactoring because I've got too many people I follow. Hard to browse, but it's basically got a few sections. It's got this sort of image up here. It's got a series of avatars and a series of names. And what I want to show you is how easy it is to just populate these things. You don't need to know too many queries. What we're going to use is some primitives provided by Patchcore. We're going to access them via debject in order to just build this page really quickly, hopefully. So let's look at what this thing gives. It gives up, well, the main thing it gives up is a app page called profile. The things that it needs are, we've got a few templates. These look like they've got HTML. There's an about template for editing. There's that scroller again. There's a contact HTML relationships. That could be the friends and stuff. And there's a message HTML render. We've got some other things as well. So under the about topic, we've got about obs name. This is a fairly commonly used one. We haven't talked about obs. Obs is something that it's what's called an observable, and this is kind of like a variable which will just auto update is how it ends up getting used. So let's have a look at where it's used actually. Oh wow, I need to have done some research and chosen some better options. So looks like the profile is made up of about HTML edit. So let's go and look at that about HTML edit, because that's probably got the bit that I might be a little bit more accessible. So this just gives up about HTML edit. It uses a few observables about obs name, about obs image URL, and about obs description. And those are the image URL, the name, and if I had a description it would be in here. So okay. Everywhere I'm doing things that are slightly too fancy, aren't I, for a beginner intro. We're just gonna munge some things in place. I'm just gonna jam something in here. API about obs image URL, and I think it was an ID that came in. Where's the ID? Yeah, so this is editing a particular person's ID, so that was passed in. And let's just see what that does. So this is using hyperscript style. What happened, yeah, I'll come back to what this is doing. Cool. Just jammed an image URL in there. And if I changed my thingamajig, what would happen? If I changed my image, then hopefully this, what we'll see is this changes up here. Yep, and you might have seen it change just instantly there. So what's really nice about this is you might go var URL equals like that, and then you could go like that, but let's make it an actual image. So h image source is that URL. And I'm just hitting Control R to reload, and there it is, just jammed in there with no styles. So it's getting squashed. Yeah. So you can do the same with the name, like API.aboutObs name, And I think I can do that because I have, we've said that we need that. So if we deleted this line and tried to run this file, it wouldn't have what it needs, and it would you'd see an error thrown. So let's just do that. Whoop. I39. Oh, I didn't give it an ID. So there's my name, and if I change my name, if I confirm that change, it would change there. Okay, so I was going to tell you about this. What this is actually doing is when you put a capital letter in there, it assumes it's a div, and it makes this a class. And the reason we're doing that is because in Patchbay and Patchwork we're using MCSS, which looks like this. So it looks a little bit like, is it less or SCSS? So things you don't need semicolons on the end. What you need to know is that MCSS is highly opinionated, and the CSS that it generates is, maybe let me see if I can show you. So just in here, you can see the CSS that's relevant to this was about editor, section avatar, footer. And this character here means direct child of only, as in it won't hit any footer inside about editor. It will only hit the footer, which is the child of section avatar, which is the child of about editor. So section avatar footer. This got converted into that CSS here. So you can go and read about micro CSS. Yep. So I think the only other really quick thing to mention is patch core. So Patchbay is at the moment this set of modules I've just required in all of the files, and then like you run this combine command from depject, which is depject, and it sort of like connects all of those needs and gives together magically. But you'll notice that what we're actually running on is we've got these other modules that people have written. So Happy's written SSBGS, Pete has written gatherings, I wrote a settings module, Patchbay is this app, and all of this sits on top of patch core. So patch core, let's go and have a look at it, because it's doing most of the heavy lifting, and it's super excellent for getting started. So notice it's sort of fairly similar structure about HTML image. It's made up of all of these tiny little primitives. So if you use about HTML image and give it and pass in an ID, it'll return an image with a background color that looks nice as a default and the image URL. So you could have actually used this instead of that that raw code that I was writing. So what's really nice about patch core is you can just have a roam around and see how things are being done, and message is probably a little bit more complicated. See how things are being done, and you can copy and paste little bits out of this, and you can also, a depject allows you to override some of these defaults really easily. So yep, So I think the only thing to mention, the only other thing that I neglected to really mention was when you say you need things, it's got this first here, and that's a depject thing. First is like, give me the first module which produces a non-empty result when I run the function. So there might actually be several things which provide about obs names, but it gives you the first one which it finds. So for that reason, the order that these modules are loaded matters quite a lot. So you see Patchbay is loaded on top of patchcore, and in that way we can override particular things. Like if we wanted to override about obs name, that would be easy. There are two other sorts which aren't as commonly used. There's map and reduce. Matt and I and Mikey have been talking about how we should probably need to rework some of the patterns that we've been using in patchcore, so that we are a little, there's some stuff that's emerging that doesn't feel as future-proof. But stay tuned. Anyway, that was a really hideous crappy worse is better starting point. Hopefully someone can make a better video than this. It should be pretty easy. Cheers, bye.